I guess the game is on TNT in the States because my friend Jackie Redmond is here. Great to have you. Thanks for coming in.
In person.
Uh-huh.
You even bought me a coffee. What a good friend.
I got to tell you, though, no, you're a much better friend than I am because there is no way if I had to work late at night, which I do kind of, but from my home, like you have to be at the arena. What time do you think you're going to get out of there tonight? Midnight, 12:30?
Well, it depends if this thing goes to overtime
Yeah,
or
that's
ends
what I
in
mean.
regulation, but it'll be late. Yeah, it'll be late.
Yeah, it's going to be late.
Yeah, 8 o'clock start too.
Yeah, and you got like a full day. You don't just get to mess around. You gotta go down to the arena after this. Like you got a full day. You're
Morning
ready.
skates.
You're already suited and booted. Like you're ready to roll for the entire day.
I am hoping I do get an afternoon nap in though. I am
Really?
hopeful for. I am
Okay,
hopeful. Yeah.
good luck.
Yeah. Sometimes it screws you though because then you're just more tired.
I
don't know how people do it.
I'm a terrible nap guy. I used to.
Okay.
I had to do it when I was doing the morning show because it's the only way to survive. Like it really is. It's the only way.
How many years did you do that?
2, 1.5. Not long.
I thought you did it longer.
No,
than that.
I didn't do it for that long. It was killing me. Here's the problem is I watch the sports.
Right.
And if you want to watch sports and do
You
that
don't
show, you don't sleep and
Yeah.
you suffer. And so, it just became impossible for me to keep doing it. But the daytime naps when you're doing morning show, that's basically the only part of your day that's nice.
when you get home at 10 a.m.
Everything else is trauma. Yeah, exactly. Everything else is trauma. That's what I feel for those guys. But whenever I do naps, I always wake up feeling worse. Like it takes me forever to try to get back into the groove of my day. And so I think if I was you, I would do it. But the reason why you're a better friend is that I would never do this for you.
I appreciate your honesty on that front.
Yeah, if you were like, come in, do the Jackie Redmond show at 9 a.m. when you have to do Leafs talk at 8 and you got to do it from the arena tonight, but you've also got to be there during the day to conduct interviews with the players, I'd be like, what, are you out of your mind? No.
Well, I am out of my mind. You already know that. But we are legit friends, right? We're not like fake public friends.
Yeah, I'd probably come.
And
I'd probably come to the
so
studio.
I thought I haven't seen JD Bunkis in years.
A while, I know.
I think the last time I saw you in person was when I was here doing the bubble hockey playoffs.
God.
Yeah.
Those were depressing times.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, we had a beer outside and it was
We
cold.
did. It was cold.
Yeah.
It
Actually, now I
was.
remember because you didn't dress for it.
I didn't.
Yeah, I know. I
didn't.
was like, yeah, good job
It
by
was
you.
August,
Yeah.
in fairness.
Was it really?
It was August, yeah.
I do remember it being freezing cold. That bubble hockey was terrible. I look back on that now and I'm like, I can't believe we needed to do that. We needed
did.
to keep
I did
it.
3 games a day that first round. I didn't just cover one team. I did every single game.
And you were just probably getting those tests.
Alone in the arena by
And they're
myself.
Like, go back to the hotel. Sit there in silence. Be happy that you're here.
Actually, I don't think I was supposed to have a beer with you, but I just did it.
Whoa.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, no, everybody followed all of the rules by August of that time. Everyone was like, we
Yes.
got to stay vigilant, everyone. We were all on the same page. So you're here, you're covering the game tonight. I do want to talk to you about a little bit of the game that you just covered last time you were here. But can I start with this? You're a big Leafs fan. You painted your nails blue for these
I
games.
know, it's embarrassing.
I don't think it is. I think it's like appropriate. Although I do think it's kind of funny when you put the microphone in like Brad Marchand's face.
Yeah, I
And
was
do the
waiting for
one-on-one.
someone to call me out, to be honest.
Nobody said it, eh?
No one said anything. We'll see today. They might.
You
I've been called out before.
You could just do like, blue is my grandmother's favorite color, and she just passed.
Make up a story that they cannot debate.
Yeah, that's it. And then they.
But here's the
you
thing.
get
They
such good
know.
answers.
They know.
Yeah, but if you did that move, they would immediately be reeling.
Yeah,
and they
it's
would be
like,
like,
"Oh, I'm a
We'll
jerk."
tell you all our secrets. What do you want to know? I will say.
Brad's like, I am stressed. I am worried about
that's
blowing
it.
the
We think
3-1 lead.
We think we're going to blow the lead. Oh my God, we think we're going to blow the lead. Can I ask you this? So tonight, I was feeling this for sure ahead of Game 5.
Okay.
Like the feeling of, I don't even really know if I want them to win. It was one of the first times that I was watching a playoff game and I went, yeah, I'm good. Even last year against the Panthers when they were getting their doors blown off, I kept feeling like, come on, get back in the series, find a way to chip away, get back and try to do this thing. And now we're in year 8 of this core. They've played in 9 playoff series, right? They're staring down the barrel of another embarrassing exit. And they really did paper over what has been so far a really disappointing series with these 2 wins. And like sometimes it's just like, a relationship with somebody, or I said an ailing family member, sometimes when it's over, like you do the pre-grieving of something, right?
Yep.
I always, my friend said me one once, that was like, if a girl starts writing bad stuff about your relationship in a notes app, it's over. It's like,
Taylor Swift just went through this with her 6-year relationship. For the
You
Swifties out there,
See, there
that
you go.
relationship was over before it ended.
That's what I'm saying.
Hence this whole album that she clearly wrote while she was still with him.
I have no idea. I haven't heard any of this album, but yes,
Well,
this is where I'm
basically,
going.
it's what you're talking about. She's in a relationship and she's like, we're dead.
Yeah, that's
like,
it.
I'm sick and you can't even tell that we are dying.
And that's kind of how I feel. Like there's a lot of Leafs fans right now. That's the vibe I'm picking up on, which is people moved on. They opened the notes app. They wrote down all the reasons to break up. And then all of a sudden,
waiting for the right time.
Yeah, Tuesday, they made this big romantic gesture and they were like, is this enough? And then you're like, let's see if it can be a little consistent. And I guess that's going to be the rest of the series. But I don't know. Like, I don't know. If anybody thinks that this is a group that's going to go deep in the Stanley Cup playoffs, I think some people have reservations about whether they make a fake comeback, and if that has an implication about keeping a group together that people are kind of over. Like, where are your feelings?
Well, even if the Leafs pull off the 3-1 comeback, which I do think that they're capable of, because I think the Bruins are also a flawed hockey team.
Plus, I saw Dr. Oz picked the Leafs to come back.
Wow,
like, okay,
really?
That's actually, I
What a
feel like that
nugget.
guy has magic power. So,
Well, maybe.
like, I don't know.
But if they come back, does anyone realistically think that they're going to get through Florida?
No.
Right? I don't think anyone believes that. I don't know that people think that this is a championship caliber Maple Leafs team that's going to win 4 rounds, scoring maybe 2 goals a game. Right? So I do see your point. It's like, is the team or the organization better off ripping off the Band-Aid, being like, this isn't working and we need to really perform surgery on this roster and what we think the core should be?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really know how to answer your
No,
question.
because you know what, though? Because I think
But-
that people are afraid to say what you're kind of driving at, which is what I've been driving at, which is this year, if they lose tonight, if they lose in this next couple of games, I don't think that it's going to hurt the way that it has.
I think it's
fans in the
already
past.
too late.
Yeah, that's it.
Right? It's already too late for this version of the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think hindsight's 20/20, but they probably should have made 1 or 2 major changes. If not last year, even the year before, I think you could make a solid case looking at how it's all played out. I really liked last year's team post-trade deadline. They didn't do it. They didn't get it done. So, yeah, I just think it's too late. It's too little too late, right? Like, I just don't think that they have enough to go all the way.
That's how I feel about it, too. And, like, now, and this is, I think, a bit of a trickle-down effect of social media when we do these things. And, you know, your best bosses or your best advisors will always tell you, like, hey, don't think about social media, don't think about social media. But the way that sports fandom is starting to become more and more, I think, is it's like binary. Are you a fan of being positive or are you a fan of being negative?
Right.
But that's actually not sports fandom. Sports fandom is very complicated. And now, especially as you're like an educated sports fan, you never really get to just be present. There are always future implications. There's past traumas that have impacted the way that you feel as a fan. And, you know, I'm looking at this Blue Jays season right now, right? And they can't hit at all. It's embarrassing. Like, it's really bad. They just had their worst statistical month in the team's history.
Wow.
And last year, from an offensive standpoint. And they are coming off of a year where they couldn't hit. And their manager's like, everybody be patient. And we're like, no, we've seen this.
Yeah.
But what did you guys do? You rolled it over and you removed all that layer of patience. And so by not having really any change year over year over year, they've kind of put themselves in this position where their fan base is like, I don't know. I don't really want you to be able to have a little bit of an excuse for you to just save everybody's job and keep everybody around. Like, even look at last year.
And there's crossover, right, with Jays and Leafs. It's like the Leafs have been going through the all or nothing. We believe in this group. 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 And eventually you're just like, I can't hear this anymore. Like, I can't. It's like, to go back to your relationship analogy, it's like if you have the same problem over and over and over and over and over again, and you don't actually find a way to solve it, then are you really progressing in the relationship? Not really, right? Like,
No,
the
you're just
problem
repeating the same problem,
persists.
and you're staying in comfort.
Yeah.
Like, you're doing it for reasons of comfort, and that's how it feels with the Leafs sometimes.
Because the hard thing is often the right thing, right? Like, there's a reason that we say that. And the hard thing is to trade a Mitch Marner or a William Nylander when they're still in their prime and they're still putting up great numbers, but you're not achieving any postseason success. Yeah, that's hard. It's hard because you have to get the right return. You have to make sure it's a good deal. People could criticize you. It could not work out. So people, I think, generally, I'm not just saying this is the Leafs, but generally hesitate to make major changes in their life because they're afraid of it not working out. And so they stick to what you're talking about, which is comfort and complacency. And then they wonder why they don't go anywhere or nothing happens. Because sometimes you have to go backwards to go forwards.
Yes,
if that makes sense.
That
and the
correct.
Leafs have never done that, right? Look at the Vegas Golden Knights, right? Been in existence for, 7 seasons, 6 seasons, whatever it is.
It's not that long. I feel still in my heart that
2018,
it's
so
2
6.
years.
I think this is their 7th.
4 years.
This is their 7th season, actually. Because my first year at NHL Network was their first year.
Yeah, I don't like thinking about those years being that far behind.
But look at what they do. They wheel and deal. They trade people. They make bad trades. They acquire picks that are pieces that don't work out, and then they just ship them out. Like, they are not afraid of change at all. And it's worked out pretty well for them for the most part. They haven't been perfect, but I mean, Marc-Andre Fleury was there for how long? They, he leaves, they figure it out.
And he was the face of their franchise.
The face.
He was the guy that they molded.
And was amazing for them.
Yeah.
Like, that run to the final, he was incredible. So I guess the Leafs have been afraid of change, and they're paying for it now.
They
right?
have been. And I've made this point before, but I think that in this city, for a little while, there was actually too much turnover. Like, think about the Raptors and the amount of coaches they were rifling through, and they had no set culture, and then they get Masai Ujiri, and they go, okay, cool, we're settling down roots. We're making this thing happen. Blue Jays less so. Like, they had basically, same guys at the helm for a long time. Paul Beeston was here for a very, very long time. But the Leafs, that was another thing, right? Firing through coaches, firing through general managers, trying to figure out, like, what are we going to do? What's our identity? Going from the JFJs to the Brian Burks. And then all of a sudden, they finally feel like they get this thing right, where they create this top-down thing of Shanahan, Lou, Dubas, Babcock. They're really getting the organization set in place. And then it starts falling apart, not really by, their want, but more by them being forced by Dubas's attraction around the NHL. And then since then, it's almost like they've been thinking, well, we don't want to go back to the old Leafs. We don't want to have change. We need to make sure that it's always stable, stable, stable. You've got to give organizations time. You got to give front offices time. Like, Shanahan's had his time here. Like, you've had your time. This core has now had its time.
Had a lot of time.
That's it. And more
Sheldon Keefe has had a lot of time.
And the way that they treat these guys are as though they've actually had more proof of concept. Like, these regular season games matter when they keep showing up and having the same finishes. And it's strange because this year they have, I would say, more excuses than any other season that doesn't include the excuse of youth, right? Like, if you exclude the early Bruins series, like, I take those ones out.
Sure.
I take out even the Columbus series. You look at just the last 5 years, this one is the most. They're missing Matthews. Nylander was missing games. Their goaltender was actually, he wasn't putrid, but gave up backbreakers, and he wasn't the right goaltender net. They don't have a good blue line. They've got a bit of a mercenary core that they could probably try and spend time trying to build around this group a little bit better. They don't have a good head coach. Like, they could probably bring in a better head coach and get some better results, and yet everyone's looking at this and going, yeah, there is something else, though. There is something else about this core, and the byproduct of having them is the team around them is always going to kind of be this way. Little pieces that are built around them that keep shuffling over year. And if one goes down with an injury like they have, or if they don't just rise to the occasion and are super duper stars, then people are going to feel a great disappointment in watching them. And so, yeah, I think that there is some fear that people here are afraid of success. Like, the Leafs, if they come back and win the series, that it gives the front office carte blanche to be like,
100%.
We did it. This group was what we said they were, and we're rolling it over, and everything's totally fine, and the relationship, we're all back together. And
I think for a long time, I'm going to wonder about what happens if Dubas doesn't leave this organization last offseason, right? Like, what happens if he stays, if he's here? Is there changes? Is it a different conversation that we're having right now? Because last year, they win the series against Tampa, and everybody, I like to think that in the moment I had this opinion, and I think I did. Maybe I'm rewriting history, but like, the Leafs weren't better than Tampa in that series.
Yeah,
They weren't.
They got better goaltending, which is crazy
They
to say.
got better goaltending because Vazzy wasn't his normal Vazzy self. Hedman was hurt in the series, playing hurt. And the Leafs needed 3 overtimes to win.
And their power play, though, actually worked for the first time in
The only time.
playoff history.
Only
for them.
time ever. No.
Yeah, it's like the only. No, it's true. The last 5 playoffs, it's the only time.
Yeah.
And again, I take out the Columbus series where it was also dreadful. It's the only time where they were clicking at over 25%. Over 20%. You can lower the bar. Over 20%.
It's not been good.
No.
And what's one thing that coaches can control or have an impact on? Special teams, right? I don't think that the Leafs' home record and this string of losses at home is a coincidence. I don't think it's the crowd. I don't think it's the pressure. I am starting to wonder if maybe one of the bigger factors is the fact that Sheldon Keefe, when he is in control of situations, tends to overthink things. And I think the fact that he has last change and he gets to react to what the other team is doing if he wants to, and I think he does do that a lot, I think that hinders the team in a lot of ways.
So it's interesting with him, though, too, right? And I was thinking about this yesterday because did you see the Brenderborn reports?
Yes.
So basically, to summarize, without me having the actual reporting in front of me, my understanding of the Brind'Amour stuff is that he is in negotiations with the Hurricanes over a new contract, but that they're like millions of dollars apart.
Yeah.
That the Hurricanes are going, yeah. And could he change some of this with a deep run? Probably. But should the Hurricanes get bounced, say, in the next round, say they lose to the Rangers, yeah, I think it's probably unlikely if you're millions of dollars apart and you've suffered a second round exit that you're going to be able to get that money. Should the Toronto Maple Leafs lose this round, like when you say, I wonder what would have happened with Dubas,
Yeah.
I think that he gets such an incredible benefit of the doubt from his supporters that say, well, had he stayed, he probably would have moved off of one of the guys from the core. And I'm like, so you say. I actually think the one thing that really would have happened is he would have had to fire Sheldon Keefe. Is there wouldn't have been that extension. That the reason Keefe got extended is they were reeling. The coaching market dried up in front of the Leafs' eyes. They couldn't make a move. They were completely paralyzed by the fact that they didn't have a general manager to make that decision because it was basically the only way that they could show anybody that their general manager actually mattered.
Yeah.
Like, Treliving wasn't allowed at the draft for, the first round? He was just jumping into the fire here. It was full... settle everything down. That's part of the reason why they told the core guys you're staying. They were just really trying to right the ship, keep everything calm, not have a disaster on their hands. And by the time he gets into the job and they're meeting Sheldon Keefe, you're going, you've had this guy hanging around now for a month.
Long time.
Waiting? And now you're going to fire him? What are the optics of that?
And it's a wasted bullet, as everyone says, for Treliving too, right? Like, do you want to really come in and do that right away?
Yep.
For his own personal selfish longevity? No, that's not the smart thing to do.
Exactly. You've got a coach now that you can fire. You've got a scapegoat for a season.
Yeah.
But also, it was a sign of, remember, like, Spezza left with Dubas. And it was, oh, look, his lieutenants are leaving with him. Everybody loves Dubas. And it was one guy. It was Jason Spezza. And there were these articles coming out like, the Leafs are in complete disarray and people don't know if they're coming or going because there's Dubas guys and there's Shanahan guys and the organization's completely split. That was the public way of saying to people, we are a united front. Look, we have Kyle's guy. He's here to stay. We're working it out with him. And in actuality, it was never the right move to keep Sheldon Keefe. Like, I'm sorry, it was not the right move to keep Sheldon. And now you're seeing kind of this play out right now in the playoffs. But I am a little concerned that if they do come back or they win a couple of games,
I think it changes things?
No, I don't think it does for him. I think it does potentially for everybody else. And that's what I'm saying about the feeling of it being torn is I don't think anyone will go into an offseason where they say, hey, we fired Sheldon Keefe, but we brought in, let's say it is Rod Brind'Amour. Because would you agree that's the highest ceiling coach that you could envision?
Probably.
Yeah, right? There was like some Cooper buzz. I don't buy that.
Yeah, but like, is Joel Quenneville coming back at some point?
My understanding,
is that a thing?
I think it should be a thing. Like, personally, I've heard the story and I've seen what exactly was, like, he was told by people, we're handling this. He's a coach in a playoff series. I think anybody with a brain should be able to understand, like, hey,
your boss tells you that it's being taken care of, you assume that it is.
That was going to happen. That he was focusing on his job and that he was he trusted
the
his
reference
superiors.
letter hurts him a little bit.
Definitely. But it's just,
So.
but if you look at that from a reasonable standpoint, you're like, should this guy be blackballed from hockey forever? I don't think so. Like, I don't believe that to be the case. But I have a hard time seeing it here. Like, I have a hard time seeing it in Toronto where there is this much of a media presence. There is this much attention. Like, I actually don't think he would shy away from this job. I just think that ultimately
the Leafs wouldn't want it.
Yeah, and it would just, they would probably view it as too much of a distraction, especially if that's your one move, right? Like, you're keeping the core four together. You're keeping the same general managers. You're keeping the same front office.
Talk about bad timing for Brind'Amour for that report to come out. Like,
see, I think it's the best timing for him.
For him personally, or for his? I'm talking about for his hockey team.
His hockey team is going like I think you've been around him, right?
He's the best.
Yeah,
the absolute best.
I think he's got his team bought in very much about, like, let's play day to day versus let's worry about the future. And if you're him, you could spin that as that's the rest of the hockey. That's New York trying to distract us. This is a New York. Who put your name on this report? Who had this? New York. That's what I'd be doing anyways. Be like, they're trying to fracture the room. But yeah, I do wonder if they'll try to paper over what we've seen with just a coaching firing, and that to me would be a mistake.
I 100% agree. I don't know how anybody can watch the last 5 years of this core and this team and think anything else outside of one of these players has to go. It just it does not work. It does not work to pay the rest to construct the rest of your roster with that little amount of money. It does not work.
It hasn't.
It doesn't work. It hasn't worked. It won't work. It won't work.
That's how
because you're not going to be able to get the defenseman that you need desperately on the back end. It's just not going to happen. And you need more than one also. So, yeah, it's just not happening.
I do think that if they got in the next round and it was like a complete beatdown by Florida, that totally sapped the momentum of them coming back.
Is there any part of you that thinks if they come back from 3-1 that the adversity and coming back and all of that will bring them together and actually propel them into maybe having a fighting chance against the Panthers, especially with Joe Woll playing the way that he can play?
This is actually the real wild card I believe in. I believe in that kid. I believe in that goaltender.
He's changed everything for me. Like, it has changed the whole series, which is why I think it's probably going to go a seventh game.
So this is so dumb because they're probably going to lose tonight. I feel
I
like
don't
they're going
think
to
they
win the
are.
series. Yeah, I think they're going to win the series. I do. And I feel that in my bones. Like, and it's not
the
Dr.
energy
Oz.
has changed, right?
Yeah, it has. Who's the guy that does all the Dr. Oz? I'm pretty sure I don't want to say it. I think I'm getting these things wrong. Who's the guy that shows up at the draft now and predicted like all of the first round with McAfee? Who's that guy? Oz the Mentalist. Okay, yeah.
Dr. Oz.
I think Dr. Oz was like the guy that...
Isn't it the medical talk show guy?
Yeah, he's got like some...
When you said it earlier, I was like, what?
Yeah, no, he's got some... I think that the history on that fella is not so hot. I don't think it's so good in terms of his endorsements of medications and such. Anyway, that's all I know. Anyway, no more of that talk to avoid, defamation suits for this place. No, but that mentalist guy, that's who I'm saying has, I think, special powers. Like, that guy shows up and he's freaking out everybody all the time. And I don't think he's Chris Angel. I think that guy's, if you were ever going to convince me about the supernatural, there's nothing that's more convincing to me than the Oz the Mentalist guy. Like, I'm just saying that right now. Him picking the Leafs, I actually feel like that changed that meant something to me. No, but do you know what actually it is? Is that this is where I'm at with this team and this core is, of course they would come back after this. Like, of course that everyone would do this, kick dirt on them, say they're the greatest losers in sports history, look at the bickering on the bench, talk about their lack of culture, and then they could go, oh, see, we came back and we're actually a team now, and then force everyone to be like, fine, you're a team now. All right, second round, let's do this thing. Try to get people to believe, and then psych. Yeah, just like last year. That's the biggest. Like, we do a little bit too much doom casting as a fan base. When people go, why do you do that? It's like, well, why wouldn't you? That's what they've done. That's what is provided by this team. Of course, they've got you on edge.
We're going based off of the knowledge that we have of the team in the past. Yeah.
And they've had similar patterns. I don't think it's like doom casting when there are patterns with the group, but like them playing one really good hockey game in Boston has not changed the way that I feel about the ultimate plan and some of the things that need to happen. And to me, it's like, I want to get into this kind of next, is you've been around both these teams and around a lot of teams. Like, you've been doing this job for a very long time. And what are the differences that you see from a reporter standpoint when you just look at the way teams carry themselves, right?
Yeah, I mean, I saw it. I think I texted you about this. I text a lot of people after game 4.
Don't diminish our text messages.
No, I know. Ours are special.
You're like, I texted you after the game, and then you're like, but you were one of a million. It's like, oh.
No, but this particular thing is that, we've talked about how great the culture is in Boston for a really long time, right? Like, it's no secret that they have a winning culture there. They know how to be pros, all of those cliches. But then when you have the Bruins and the Leafs in the same arena and you're going back and forth between the rooms, not just during the game, but leading up to the game, morning skates, the couple of hours before the games, it really actually stood out to me. I was like, wow, like it's actually so different. And, we have coach meetings before the games and Jim Montgomery's joking around. He's telling stories. You feel like he wants to talk to the broadcasters, right? And he's answering questions and he's comfortable. He's at ease. His body language is good. And then you go over to Keefe. And this isn't me trying to like crap on Sheldon Keefe. I think it is a microcosm of the pressure that is in this market and the last 5 years for that team and for him. But his arms are crossed. He doesn't really give off the vibe that he necessarily wants to be in the conversation. He'd rather be prepping for the game, which fair. But he's a little more defensive in his approach. He's a little bit more tight, whereas Montgomery is super loose. Same thing with the players, right? Like game 4 after the skate, now they're up 2-1, so maybe that's part of it. But like JVR is catching up with me and Jody Shelley in the hallway after. Like skate's over. We already talked to him in the room. He's shooting the shit with us. Can I say that? Oh, sorry. My bad. Whoops. I'm too loose right now. Yeah. He's chatting with us in the hallway. So is Brad Marchand. Over on the Leaf side, different story, right? So, and then during the game, I think the biggest thing for me was seeing Jeremy Swayman come off the ice after the first 20 minutes. And I am not exaggerating. He daps me. He daps the security guys in the hallways. Like, this guy is having a blast. He is loose. He's having fun. He's smiling. He's not worried. He doesn't seem stressed or uptight, which is why I loved Joe Wall after the last game saying, I'm having fun. I'm having a good time. I'm like, finally, someone that is not just so worried about perception or answering the question the right way or behaving the way that they're supposed to or coming across like they're part of some like pompous organization that it like is smarter than you. So I think those were like my big takeaways from game 4. I know I'm rambling a bit.
No, that's good. And I think that that's important information for people because again, I don't think that what the Leafs have so far is a coaching issue. I do believe that it is a culture issue. Yeah. And I think that I think
people confuse those two things a lot.
I know, but it's like this coach is not setting the culture. You could actually blame Babcock for that. Because he had enough power when he was brought in to be like the figurehead of this.
I think it goes beyond that, though. I think Dubas and Shanny are responsible for
totally
it
agree.
too,
That's
right?
my
Like
point.
the lack of accountability,
100%.
the fact that everybody stays, the fact that nothing changes, the fact that all of the emphasis is put on those core 4 or 5, depending on who you talk to, players. Like, I listen to your show all the time. I'm a supportive friend.
Thank you.
I love Chris Versteeg coming on. I think he's very insightful. And he's been beating this horse for 2 years, I feel like, talking about other players need to feel important. They need to feel like they play a specific role on the team, that they are there to help you win. And I don't know that this organization or the coaching staff have done a good job of that. And I don't think it's a coincidence that with Matthews out of the lineup, all of a sudden, everybody else, of course you're going to play harder. Of course you're going to be more focused. Your season's on the line. Your best player's out. But I also think there's an element of, I'm a little bit more important in this game. I'm going to get a few more minutes. I actually matter. I actually am going to be relied upon to determine the outcome of this game. And I think there's probably a lot of players on that team that if you actually injected some truth serum into them, would say that they don't fully know what their defined role is on the team or necessarily feel like they're trusted by their coach to do 1, 2, or 3 things, even if they are very small, little things.
Like, how could you, though? Look at all the players that have come in and out of the lineup. And so every year it's always, this is the reason that they're going to, or this is the move they're going to make. This year was like secondary scoring. Where has that been? Like, has there been secondary? Have they scored a bunch of goals? No. It's the same thing. And if you have secondary scorers, why not change up your power play?
I was just going to bring that up.
And this is what I mean about the culture stuff and why I think it's going to require a greater shakeup than just a coach. Sheldon Keefe has to know. His coaching staff has to know. At the point of 1 of 17, you need a more drastic change on your power play.
And the wild thing is that the Bruins changed their units the last week of the season.
But that's because their players don't run the organization. There isn't a culture of, if you have people that feel different, like if there are different rules for other people in your organization, that creates resentment among others, especially if the role is supposed to be the same. Guys always, of course, understand in any market, like someone might make more than you.
Yeah.
But if every single year you're looking at it and you're part of a team, and this is what I've always thought about with having these mercenary corps, is you're like, you might be on the way out because if you're not taking the least amount of money, if you're not sacrificing everything, and you're not willing to go along with this plan of no power play, no money, diminished role potentially, unless you're that, guess what? We got to make room for the other guys. Hey, don't even be thinking about power play time. That's for these guys. Hey,
even when it's dreadful,
exactly. It's
which is not
17,
good.
You're still stapled to the bench. But now get out there and make sure that you score 5-on-5. And what's the story of the series? Oh, they didn't score 5-on-5. Oh, they didn't have good enough penalty killers. Oh, they didn't have enough good blue line. Oh, Samsonov wasn't good enough. Now it's on Joe Woll. That's the thing, is they haven't gotten good goaltending, but people are kind of sick of the idea of like, okay, great, so an excuse has to happen for someone else.
And here's the thing, like, and again, like, Joe Woll changes this whole thing for me. And in hindsight, I kind of look at it and I'm like, after the Frederick goal, like, was the door open for you to start Woll in game four?
Game 4?
Should you maybe have done that? Are we going to look back on that in a week and say, this might be a totally different series if you make that change?
I'd feel better about that if they showed up for game 4.
100%. But maybe they do if Woll's in net, because they're like, okay, this kid's coming in. He hasn't played in however long. Like, they're going to play differently. That's human nature. That's not a knock on Samsonov. I don't think it's like, oh, this guy sucks. Now we have this guy and we're going to play better.
Yeah.
But subconsciously, there is an effect of who's back there and how much you trust them and how much you want to protect them and help them and put them in the best position to succeed. But outside of that, and again, I think Woll was awesome, obviously, in game number 5. It's the reason they still have a season. But I don't think the Leafs are down in this series because of goaltending. Like, I really don't believe that. They're not scoring.
Yeah, score
like, how
goals.
can you not score?
Yeah.
Your whole thing is that you're going to score. Your whole thing is we are the scorers.
Yeah.
We are the team that scores goals, and we can't score goals. It's actually kind of funny when you really step back from your fandom and your attachment to the team. It's ridiculous.
Yep.
They can't even score with an extra dude on the ice.
Nope.
It doesn't make sense.
They cannot do it, and they continuously don't do it. It drives me crazy, too, because it's like, you know who had the second most goals for in the regular season?
Who?
The Toronto Maple Leafs.
Of course.
The second. The only team that they scored less than was Colorado. And you watch Colorado play, and you go, oh, I see. That team scores.
I watch almost all these other series, and I go...
But of course they score. That's because they're built on offense, right? And they just embarrassed Connor Hellebuck to the point where we're all like, whoa, Vezina fraud.
Yeah, what is happening?
He's going to go up. He's going to accept that award. And I always reference Dirk Nowitzki in these moments because
in fairness, they were awful in front of him.
Yeah, they were. But this is Dirk Nowitzki once accepted an MVP award right after the Mavs lost to the Golden State Warriors as an 8 seed. Before the Golden State Warriors were the Golden State Warriors. Old people like me used to watch them, and they were embarrassing, and they would sometimes have fun teams, and it was like Baron Davis and Monte Ellis, and it was actually a bunch of tiny guys, and a Latvian dude, Anders Bjorkgren, by the way, who beat them in a series, and then Dirk was the MVP who had to go up and accept an award after losing to an 8 seed. And this is, again, before... this new parity infatuation that all leagues have where everybody's equal, everybody's the same. It's got to be all the teams that are basically the difference between the best team and the worst team is marginal at best. And that's going to be Hellebuck because that Colorado offense is so high powered. And the Leafs, just like they've had no series that's felt that way. The best one ever has been the Tampa series. And again, it was the power play that clicked, and it was Vasilevsky playing on one knee, and the Leafs tore him apart. And that's the only time we've ever seen proof of concept. Like, that's it. The concept can't just be Joe Woll steals you hockey games. That's great.
I think their only shot at doing anything meaningful right now is if we have one of these years where a goalie comes out of nowhere and goes on a Cinderella run. We have seen it before. It is possible. But if that's what your best case scenario is that your team starts scoring some goals and Woll plays out of his mind, like there's problems.
I totally agree.
So-
That's it. You can both. And again, the binary.
And also, look at the Oilers.
Yes.
They don't have Dominic Hasek between the pipes.
They actually have a guy who was a sieve for the larger part of the series.
And
Then was
look,
great closing.
They're done. They closed out the series. Like, I believe in the Oilers. Like, I watch them and I'm like, you know what? This team might do something.
I know.
We'll see.
Oilers Avalanche would be very
interesting.
Very fun. That's a very interesting, fun series, especially since the last time they played, the Avs embarrassed them. They went, oh, that was cute.
Yeah.
Your guys' run, that was real cute, but now it's our time.
Time to go home.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And now I think this Oilers team is better, and that's actually, that will, if that ends up happening, be a very,
And here's what the Oilers have done that the Leafs haven't. They have made changes.
Yeah.
They've made multiple coaching changes
they did.
to the point where I was like, it's too many. Like, how many coaches are we going to go through here? But it's working right now. That's one thing that's working.
They also, you know what they did that was good? Gave Zach Hyman money.
Yep.
Yeah.
That worked
would've
out
been good.
real nice.
Yeah,
real nice.
Turns out giving Zach Hyman money is smart.
Yeah.
Turns out
he's worth it.
Yeah, it turns out when you had questions about your effort level night in, night out, having the guy who was always described as the Energizer Bunny that has been consistently the hardest working guy maybe in hockey, play on your team. It's like, it's good. It's good. There's a real value to that. I actually have, you obviously worked a long time with Mike Rupp, and I have him on the show after you today.
Oh, cool. Tell him I say hi.
Well, yeah, I will, but I really do want to ask him what it says about the inconsistent effort levels, right? Because that does tend to happen with this team too, is how do you show up for one game and then not show up for the next? And how do you start slow? Like, they're so inconsistent. That's why it drives me crazy. It drives me nuts.
And it's frustrating because like no one is sitting here saying like these players don't care or like Mitch Marner doesn't care. I think these players do care. But so why? Why are they so inconsistent? What is it about this team and this culture where they're just constantly find themselves in moments where they're not ready or they can't handle the pressure?
Yeah, I think guys care, but and I do this with all sports.
I think Mitch Marner cares too much, actually. I think Mitch Marner.
What other people think,
just in general.
Yeah.
In general, I think he does care about public perception, whether he wants to admit that or not. I think that he has become someone that has a lot of resentment towards the fan base in a weird way.
Certainly the media.
I think that he cares about playing for the Leafs. I think he cares about winning. I think that he cares maybe a little bit too much about being the guy in Toronto. I think he really does wear the pressure. But I also think that if he were to be the guy that goes and plays somewhere else, I think he would flourish somewhere else. Because I think he actually wouldn't care so much, and it would be a benefit to him to not care so much.
If I was the Leafs and I was asking them to waive the no movement clause after the season, which I would be, regardless of the situation at this point, because again, I think that they need a real change. They got to just try and see something different. And frankly, this is an entertainment product, and people can say, like, you're never going to win the Mitch Marner trade, okay? He's got no movement clause.
And I just know, too, like, he'll go somewhere and maybe he'll win a cup. Maybe he'll just be outrageous. And everyone will be like, oh, they shouldn't have got rid of him. No, he will thrive because he's gone somewhere else.
That's what I would be trying to tell him privately, is I would go, man, aren't you tired of this? Like, isn't this just a lot? I don't like it. I hate talking about Mitch Marner now. It's gotten to that point where even when I want to be critical of him, I just go, it feels like piling on, and I hate it.
100%.
I hate it.
I do feel for him in a lot of ways. I do.
Yeah, so do I. I don't think that I think it's very dismissive to not think about some of the challenges that he's clearly had. What he's been able to accomplish as a player. Like, even in that last game, he was good. But he's not 13 million good, and he's certainly not 13 million good in this market. And there's just the connection between him and the fan base it's just not there. And it died the day that he wanted the same amount of money as Austin Matthews and put those similar expectations on his shoulder. And at that time, people gave him the benefit of the doubt, and they went, look at the points and they did the thing. But now, again, we know it goes beyond
so many
that.
missteps in hindsight. When you really start going through the history of this particular core, and it's not their fault. It's not the coach's fault. It's not. I think a lot of it is on the people at the top. I really do.
I do too. I think it's very much a shared.
It's a shared failure.
The blame pie. Everybody gets slices of the blame pie. Okay. Yeah. And we used to do the thing, especially in this market, of be really defensive of the core four players in the blame pie. It was always something else, like, oh, well, it was the blue line, or it was this failing of Dubas, and they didn't have enough toughness, and they had the wrong coach, and blah, 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 blah. And now I think that this is the first time where they're getting their fair share of the blame pie, which is insane because, again, Matthews he's not going to play tonight, I don't think anyways. Maybe like he's skating, which is good, but he's stepping on the ice.
Another mysterious, like what is going on with Matthews. We don't know. We're not going to know until it's over, but very strange because, and actually my cousin texted me earlier and was like, there's a rumor going around that Matthews is sick because you interviewed him. And I was like, what? Reddit is a weird place. However,
who's finding that?
I don't know.
Your cousin
at college.
Also,
she said these people
I got to tell you, your cousin at college, there is nothing less helpful to people who work in media.
Then be like, did you hear this rumor about you? I said,
no, I didn't. Like, here's this horrible thing someone said about you. I'm like, thanks.
Thanks for that.
First of all, I know Raptors Reddit hates my guts.
Really?
Oh, like there are some Raptors Reddit threads about me that will genuinely make me feel like I need to quit and just go work like at Bucky's in the States and just pump gas and mop the floor. Just, humble life away from all of this. And I've had people send me this stuff. Or they'll be like, someone will do a tweet about me and they'll send me the thing and I go, yeah, thanks.
Well, I don't want to see this.
Yeah, why would I ever want to have this in my orbit? Like, this is crazy. That's what, again, sucks with this media stuff and what drives me crazy about the media stuff. It's like,
so think about Mitch Marner.
Well, I do think about him, but also when you're a player of that level in a sport like this, in a market that cares, it's not like media here, I think, is actually all that bad. I don't think media is nearly as powerful as it used to be anyways. Like, to me, it's just that there's so much, and now everybody has a podcast, everyone has an opinion, everyone has access.
Fans can get at you.
That's what I mean. There's millions of pods, and so if you want to find negative stuff about yourself, it's out there. There's also a ton of positive. Like, whenever we talk about the media, you go, okay, well, what about the media in terms of gassing up a guy like Bobby McMahon, who puts together a couple of weeks of good play and ends up with getting his NHL dream accomplished? Like, is that happening in, Dallas? Is that I don't know. Maybe it is. But also, there are pros and cons to this thing. Like, there is a lot of positivity that comes out of this stuff. And guess what? If they come back, there's going to be a lot of clippings about them too.
And there is something to be said about asking for all that money before having, won anything. And you have 100%. To carry that. Like, you just do. Like, I know money doesn't buy happiness, all that crap. But, like, when you ask for that money and you fight for it, which is what Mitch Marner did, and then you don't win, like, that is the risk that you take. That's what you have to, that's what comes with it. Yeah. So you kind of have to shoulder it a little bit and be like, well.
But these things are not that complicated. I find it so strange that it's like, like Mitch Marner takes a lot of heat. It's like, yeah, he's an $11 million hockey player in the hockey market that cares the most, and he doesn't
take the heat, though. Like, he doesn't own it.
No, never.
And that's, I think, his biggest problem. I think if he actually just decided, you know what? I haven't been good enough.
I don't think he's
I
good
need to
enough
stop, like, defending myself and be like, people are too hard on me, and just be like, yeah. Because once you agree, what can anyone say?
You know what's crazy? There's so many stories like this that I'll hear from hockey players that have either played in this market or who have left markets for certain reasons, whatever. And then you get the reason why. And it's such a human reason. And you're like, why didn't you say that? And they go, well, I didn't want to make it seem like weird or didn't want to have added attention. Like, this is so stupid. You actually would have. These guys have it so backwards in a lot of places. Yeah. Like, I know about one guy prominently who left one spot, and it's just like, his story is the most relatable thing ever, and it was like he was vilified, and you're like, this is crazy. You're right.
What was his reason, or can you not say?
No, I don't want to get anything but it's just like, I keep thinking about stuff like this all the time, and I go, if you are a human being, most people are going to relate to you more and see
if you're just honest.
A human. If you constantly are making excuses and you're constantly, being dismissive, then people are going to look at you like, wow, what a jerk. Duh. I've never really understood that thing. And they go, oh, let's not create distractions, right? In this market, everything's a distraction. It doesn't matter what you say. We're going to find a read between the lines, between the secondary line. Like, that actually is where I go, all right, media stuff. Like, I do it too. I'm like, wait, I didn't really like the tone on this. I'm going to discuss how I viewed the body language of when they gave this. Like, there's no not making distractions for yourself. You might as well kind of have some sort of transparency or what authenticity that people can relate to.
Yeah, and just owning it.
Yeah.
Even if it's just something that you say, like, I know Marner's had some, I felt for him in these moments too, where his verbiage is weird.
Looks like he's
what
completely
are you talking
broken, sad
about?
puppy.
But like even Keefe, what did Keefe say yesterday? And I find like Keefe, I do like to listen to his post games because I find oftentimes he is honest and he is at least thoughtful in some of his answers. But what did he say yesterday?
He's reactionary.
Something about, well, we're focused on one game. We're not trying to impress anybody. I was like,
no.
what? What do you mean? Why are you saying that?
Because that's part of their culture is that
They're worried.
like, they think about what other people say about them. You know, when you meet the person that's like, I don't care what anybody says on social media or whatever. Actually, you're kind of like this. You're
I'm like this? I am not like this.
No, you actually
I
openly
care.
admit how much you
I
care
care.
about how
I
people
care.
care. If people come at you on
People
social
hurt
media,
my feelings on
I've had
there.
to be like, don't reply, Jackie, to the people.
Every once in a while, you got to reply.
God, I fight it all the time, every single time. But
I don't look at my mentions as much as I used to.
That's good.
I've actually gotten much better about that.
But where I was going with it is, you do get the odd person that's like, oh, I don't care. And then it's like, oh, they actually care the most. But because they keep saying it,
Yeah.
you're like, okay, like no one was even really discussing that with you. And and I think that the Leafs are that person who checks their mentions all the time and they see every tweet, like they saw it.
And I think too, it's like in life, the more you try to avoid something or not care about something or not think about something, the more you actually do. I think it's probably been like beaten into the Leafs, like, okay, don't worry about the white noise. Don't worry about what people are saying to you. Like, you're in this market. This is how you have to handle it, blah, 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 blah. And then that's all you think about because it's all you're ever told from the second that you're here. And it's all you ever hear about.
I think that's true. So before you go.
Tonight, we have barely talked about tonight.
Oh, yeah. I think we've talked about a lot tonight, actually. This is the feeling of tonight.
Yeah.
What are you most looking forward to asking today?
Ooh, to asking.
Like, who do you want to speak to when you're getting ready? Because you're heading to the arena now.
Yeah.
So I know they decide essentially like who you're going to end up, who's available and who's to chat. So you kind of figure some of that out on the fly.
Yeah.
But you get your druthers. Actually, this is even better. Because you're going to do some of this for work and you got to play. You get the truth serum. Who do you want to talk to and what do you want to ask them?
Ooh, the truth serum.
Yeah, they're coming out and they're like, you know what?
On either side?
On either side, they're taking our advice and going, we're going to be full authentic and we feel like we have nothing to hide and we don't care about distractions. We're going to say the truth.
Well, on the Leafs side, I think, and I'm not even joking, I think the honest answer is William Nylander. What happened on the bench? Why did it happen? And what's wrong with Austin Matthews?
We have the audio though. Someone's got to
that's
just leak
what
that.
I would want. But like the context of it, we don't have the context necessarily.
So our panel did a good job of breaking it down.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bieksa was basically pointing to they think it was a broken play off the face-off, and Marner passed it to the wrong person.
Right, but my point is like you don't say what William Nylander said.
Oh yeah,
on a one-off. There's layers.
That was
to that.
So that I talked about some people with some players about that in private. Because I wanted to know if that was, most guys kind of actually dismissed it. They were like, that's just bickering on the bench. But to me, it still felt different to say this isn't junior rather than be like, pick it up and do the thing. Yeah, anyway. Yeah, just
there's depth to that.
So your truth serum would be,
I want to know what's wrong with Austin Matthews.
Oh, that.
And also, do you guys hate each other?
Yeah, that would
Tell
be good.
me.
Yeah. That's a good one. Are you guys sick of it too?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you guys want to be referred to as the core four anymore? I bet you they'd be
tell
like,
me your
God,
real
no.
feelings, right? I think.
Do you really love the room?
Yeah. Are you guys actually close?
Yeah. Do you love your group? Sorry, that's what they always say. We love our
do you
group.
actually believe?
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah.
You really think?
Yeah.
So I think that would be the obvious one on the Toronto side, just because how could I not find out the answers to those things? On the Boston side, I think I would want to ask Brad Marchand if he's feeling the pressure of blowing a 3-1 series lead again, because I think that they are.
God, I hope they are, too.
I think that they are. I am a dramatic person. I think I dramatize everything. But I do think, even based on kind of the way that Brad Marchand was in the last game, Pasta too, I'll throw Pasta in there. I was like, you guys are you're a little easily agitated for a group that's up 3-1 and has a goalie playing lights out.
What'd
I'm
you
not
just say?
really...
Would you just say about trying not to think about something makes you think about it even more because you have to exert the energy? Is like, that's how I feel like their group is about 3-1.
Yeah. So I'll be curious to see if it's the same looseness and fun vibe of game 4 for Boston, when I get there today. I want to see if it's the same or if it's changed.
You know what I am suspecting?
What?
Fake fun vibe.
Fake fun vibe.
Yeah, where it's like, we're all having a good time, right? That thing. Hey, everybody. But people are actually a little bit on edge, and you go, no, I actually don't want this energy. I feel like that could be a little bit of it.
I'm so back and forth about my vibes for this game tonight because now I just started thinking like I'm trying to dramatize this and
Leafs are going to win
read into this, and then Boston's going to come out and destroy them. But the Leafs have to explode offensively at some point, don't they?
No, I think it's more what they're due for is winning at home one time in your lives.
It's
how about
outrageous.
Winning one time in this arena, in this city, and letting the fans not get caught by. So my least favorite content is like the streeters stuff where it's like, here's a microphone in front, and you're like, oh my God. And it's just the broken fan being like, are you sad? And then it's like a teenager now that's drunk leaving Maple Leaf Square, yelling into a mic being like, but that's what we got our hearts. I'm like, who is this for?
Streeters are also, they're fake news a bit because I feel like when you do streeters, you're looking for certain types.
Of course.
You're looking for certain things. You're being manipulative a little bit in the narrative. Yeah.
You have to find the most incendiary ones or like the best ones. But anyway, I'm just saying that I'd like it if they had the streeters video of the people being happy. Going like, we're like, I'd rather have that one than another like, hey, here's a bunch of sad 20-year-olds leaving Scotiabank. Here, put it in your feed for the next 18 days.
I'm just starting to think that maybe Boston will win tonight because I'm just like racking through my brain of all of the things the Leafs have to fix to be a good hockey team, to play well. And it's a way longer list than Boston has. Boston, they just didn't really show up the last game.
I know.
They played nervous. They played a little tight. They had a good third period, but Wall was there to make some big stops. But I don't think Boston has as much to fix as the Toronto Maple Leafs do. Unless they absolutely implode, which is always possible.
Yeah, I just think that there's
Monty gave the Leafs an absolute gift. Changing a winning lineup, I will never understand that.
I know.
I don't care how small the tweaks are. Like I heard Borny on, I don't know what show. One of the shows. Just saying like,
Leafs
they're
talk.
minor. Like I don't
Leafs
think
talk.
Brazeau for Beecher's really that big of a deal. I'm like, I think from a vibe standpoint, it's a huge deal. You can't mess with winning lineup juju. What are you doing?
Especially when you've got that type of psyche where you're thinking like,
you won 2 in a row.
Yeah, I agree.
You're up 3-1. You're going home. Let me change some things. Why?
We got a break.
Sorry.
It's okay. Thank you.
I don't want to go.
I know. I mean, you don't have to. You can stay for my cup if you want. All right, quick break. We'll come back.